Hey, so it's the reset after the world's first Root of Nightmares raid race launch weekend, whatever you want to call it. It was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. This video isn't about my opinions on it. Maybe I can make a video on that later, but I want to talk about some of the gear that came with it. And if you have a keen eye, specifically one weapon, the raid exotic, which I got. Very cool. Conditional finality. This is the first random drop special raid exotic. Divinity was the first special ammo raid exotic, but no random drop, no RNG, so it doesn't matter. So for being one of the only special raid exotics, how good is it? Well, the way it works is it's a double barrel shotgun. It's pretty sick. That's not what really makes it exotic. Where it gets cool is in its perk paracausal pellets. Landing most of your first shot will freeze your target, and landing most of your second shot will ignite it. But let's get to the real meat and potatoes of this video. Is it worth not only your kinetic slot, but is it worth your exotic slot? So there's a couple things to go over with how we play Destiny now, and that's just kind of how good is it mobbing, how good is it for raid encounters, how good is it for legend and above content like Nightfalls and Lost Sectors or exotic quests. After using it for a bit, I can say it's definitely fun, and it's not bad, so stick around and see where it excels, and in the places it is good, will it suit your needs? To start the discussion, we'll cover, DPS, boss encounters. Does this thing melt bosses? Is it the next DPS meta? So for boss testing, I just went into my DPS testing boss, the Ogre, in the Grasp of Avarice dungeon. I had Lunafaction boots on with double stasis reserves. Now this gun reloads super quick, and that's pretty much its DPS. It's tied to the reload, as well as most of its damage coming from the Stasis Shatter and the Solar Ignite. And with the way the exotic perk works, that means it has actually a lot more range and ease of use than you'd think. So that was the damage phase. Checking out the damage for just a special weapon, about 1.16 mil. Pretty good for, again, just a special weapon. Moving on, for comparison's sake, I'm going to be showing off Wolrd with Bump in the Night, Demo, Rocket, and Starfire Protocol, because that is just, the meta these days. So doing this is a pretty good rotation. I only messed up like once, but that's kind of normal for how this rotation actually works. And again, I'd like to point out this is using a heavy weapon, a kinetic exotic weapon, as well as an exotic armor piece. And with all that together, meaning your build is only meant for DPS, leads to 1.8 mil, which is really good. But again, like I just said, that's with your entire build going into DPS. So, you saw the numbers. Conditional finality isn't the next DPS meta, which with how some of us like to play, that's kind of all we're hoping for in an exotic, is what am I going to use in the next day one raid race? What am I going to use to melt bosses faster than ever before? Personally, I think this type of exotic is okay. It's definitely got use outside of DPS, and even when inside of DPS, its damage for just a special weapon is really high. And that's not to mention that over its entire reserves, it's got quite a lot of total damage. Meaning, when you're inside of really high level content like Grandmaster Nightfalls and Legend exotic missions, that total damage is really going to help because those bosses just have so much health. Now, like I just said, you're not going to be using this weapon to melt Nezarec, but what you can use it for is for champion killing. This weapon likes to chunk champions. And now you might immediately be saying, okay, champion killers, we have those, but it's a champion killer that you should get up close with. Now, of course, that should give you some reservations, but this exotic freezes whatever you're shooting at with your first shot, meaning you can get close to that unstoppable, you can get close to that overload, that whatever, and freeze it, halt, stop, and then ignite it, dealing quite a lot of damage. Unfortunately, however, the gun doesn't slow or scorch enemies. It only does 100% freeze or 100% into the ignite, meaning you cannot counter overload champions with this gun. It is pretty much only unstoppable champions intrinsically, but the freeze can kind of do anti-barrier champions because you can just never let them put their shield up. But that's not to say a stunned champion won't get nuked by this thing, because it very much will. And while you're chunking these high health enemies, whether it's a boss or a champion, as you can actually see on screen right now, when you hit your target and that shadow or that ignite goes out, you'll be killing the stuff around it, or in that high-end content, damaging it a lot. And that's definitely something you should not forget about. So that's kind of the two main pieces of content you're going to be bringing this gun into. You've got the raid settings, the DPS, what it looks like, and how it's not actually the worst. And then that champion content, GMs, and legend type activities. So don't sleep on this gun. It's pretty impressive. I'm definitely having fun using it. It's also a new raid exotic. Everybody loves to have one. But I'll be taking this into harder content as I get the time. And I'm also going to make some builds with it, especially the stasis aspect of it. So I'm sure I don't need to tell you guys, but go out there, get this exotic. And this gun isn't like how I felt towards Collective Obligation. I didn't really try it once I got it because I wasn't into Void. This gun, you don't need to do anything. Just try it, use it, enjoy it. The explosions are sick. It's got more ad clear than you'd think. It's got higher damage than you'd think. It's got more range than you think. It's just kind of a surprising gun, and we love that. So as I get more time with the gun, expect a build or two, a video going over those. And let me know in the comments, did you guys play the raid? Did you get the raid exotic? Are you a fellow conditional finality owner? And if you'd like to support me and support this channel and you can't think of a comment, type just conditional finality. Keeping it simple again. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you around.